to the August 21st, 2013 Town Council Workshop. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin, Councilor Nazaro will not be with us tonight, and other than that, we will start with public forum. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Mr. Allen.
You're run over, will I?
Come on up.
Gee.
Come on down.
Hey, come on down. Bearer of better or good news, right? Good news would do, right? You get an email, everybody, about RSA 189.6, transportation. Don't all speak at once.
I've received.
Everybody received?
Yes.
Okay. Sum up for the public. This is a transportation RSA that affects the school that they're supposed to run. I know they're an independent body. I was trying to find a way to have maybe the town kind of like a concern letter to the elected people who are sit on the board for the town, people of Newmarket, expressing the concern. The law goes this way. We do not have to pay for busing for 2 miles from the school, up to 1 through 8. Before first grade, that's an elective, and over 8th grade is an elective. And with some numbers was given out finally this week on TV, that it costs us $216 a day per bus. 5 buses, $1,080 it cost us a day for busing. Basically comes down, some buses only have 35 people on them, and the maximum is 50 people. Comes out to $4.30 per day per student to move them around. Over $5,000 a week, costs us doing this off the top of my head, $220,000, I believe that was the bill for transportation of students. I went out and drove around to see where 2 miles is, where they have to start by law, provide busing. 2 miles takes us to the bottom of Stevens Drive. 2 miles takes us to well inside Newfield's line. 2 miles takes us from the school up here to the beginning of Bald Hill Road. Anybody lives up to that Bald Hill area part of the world needs a ride on a bus. That's a long walk. I was looking at that. We're going to be increasing twofold busing by Oyster River. They are not thinking what we need. We have an empty train. It has to be this side of the train tracks, the Elm Street side or the pizza side down here, the train tracks for loading. Those cars are empty. Either Coastal or the train could run the students up at a certain time in the morning because they're coming right straight through at the time that they need, empty, drop them off at the Durham site right up there, be there in 5 minutes, a lot safer than a school bus, and save us an awful lot of money. We'd be spending $1 per student a day for busing instead of $4.30 a day. They have to add buses. He was talking about it, maybe 2, maybe 3 more buses. Keeping that price at $216, I'm sure there'd be an overcharge for mileage. You know, we're up around $1,400. There's no way to get the school to look at these positions of saving the taxpayers money. They keep asking for money. There's been a lot floated around that I would suspect is probably coming to the town real soon, a tax cap with a 0.5% increase per year. That will probably, like Dover, force the school to come to the budget committee and come to the council and negotiate their expenses a lot more by having a tax cap in place. I'm not splitting pennies over this. We're talking at $830 a day savings in money just 1 through 8 here right now. Even if all the students were now gone, which they won't be, this will still be in effect for 1 year, The savings alone is $830 a day. Still would be $250 busing with Coast buses. They already have the spots making the students walk a little farther to their stops and use the regular Coast buses, with the town taking a step and opening up here at the pizza place, down here the train stop, on a one pickup time in the morning, and the train take everybody up their empty cars and drop them at Durham, and then you're 3 minutes from school, buses meet them up there.
Just one point, Mr. Allen. This really is not under the purview of the council. This
We
is
know.
This is really more to be said to the school board.
RSA is a state law which governs them, 186.6. The only way we can govern the school is if people get angry enough and put a tax cap in place. If somebody was to put a tax cap in place with a vote with this town, the school would be forced every budget, every year, to come to the council and not be just hands out. They would look at these type of positions they put us in.
To clarify
From a-
something, if there's a tax cap in place for the school district, they don't, it's not like Dover where it's a dependent school district where they have to come to the council. The tax cap will still be placed on the school district, however, the voters still approve the budget. It doesn't come to the council, they're still an independent government.
Unless the council was to add, the voters were to vote in a parallel line item veto. That may be another thing that's being floated that may come before the council in the future.
The only reason I brought it up is I think what you're suggesting would probably be better served being said to the entity that is looking at the form of government, number one, and the school board, in the event that the town government does not change. So that's just why I brought that up, but go ahead and finish.
To be more precise about it, the entity is not coming in front of for a vote until March. If a petition bill was to go in, it would go and immediately put it in well before December with a vote and engage it this financial year. I am just heads up to the council, telling you that there are a lot of mad people here in town, and what happens in the next couple of months, and how this budget especially coming up, we're coming right into September budget, is going to make the decision, whether tax cap goes in play or not. They don't have to wait around for the charter to decide which type of government, because when the tax cap goes in, it goes for all forms of government. It's in the law for writing it. I'm giving you a heads up. There's a lot of money there savings. There's $150,000 a year, which is not small change, just alone in Newmarket. Add the extra busing that's going to be added, that's $300,000. We don't need the property taxes are drawing a line. No more tax increases. Doing a good job at running down the taxes and money coming back down. This is a good time to start a tax cap so the school understands right from the get-go how the people feel about this. Okay? It's a heads up. I mean, a nice letter to them explaining they maybe all the talk, they just so busy they don't listen to what's going on around and they don't realize they're in violation of RSA 189.6. It governs them, the town didn't do anything wrong, the school did. But I just thought a nice letter from the administrator to them explaining the law and how people feel about how much we had to walk, including I had to walk from my house to the Cannon on Bay Road for a bus, which was in the 80s, and where tax caps were quite presently talked about in the 80s about it, that might have to return what's been talked of the old, return the old talk to the new and remind the people, there's only so much you can ask out of the property payers to pay for that pot that needs to pay everybody. You need to find ways to keep it in check.
Okay,
That's all I wanted to do.
thank you.
Show you the numbers and when we need it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else from the public, Matt, do you want to say anything to the public? We'll close public comment at 10 past
Could I
Excuse
just
me.
ask a question?
Sure.
I wonder if it'd be possible to remind everyone each meeting that during the public forum, it's okay to speak with agenda items or non-agenda items. And the only reason I'm saying that is what happened last week. Even though there's no one there, I think we just should educate the people as they come in. Quite often, a new person will come in, they don't know that ruling that we have.
Okay.
And I know that particular person might have known it, but obviously didn't.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind doing that, and
I
the
don't have a
council
problem
doesn't
at all.
mind that happening, I think would be a good idea. And the other thing I'd like to say in reference to what he just said, if it's okay, I don't think it would hurt to, Steve, Mr. Administrator, do you must have rapport with the guy upstairs, and
Which guy?
the guy way upstairs.
I need some help. I'll talk to the superintendent.
It wouldn't hurt to add, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there could be some possibilities
I'll talk
there.
with
I
him.
mean, without just saying, and I know he really should be up at the school board addressing it to them, but just a friendly chat, I don't think
Yep.
would hurt at all, if you have confined
Sure.
time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Counselor Bentley.
I could have done it under, I guess, old business, but I just wanted to, I saw several of the counselors at Old Home Weekend, and just wanted to shout out to Deb Garrettson and Adam Schrader. They did a great job. It was, I think, well-attended, and the weather held for the most part. And, you know, I saw the administrators, great to see you there, and the other counselors, and the music was great. I think it was a good time, and just worth shouting out to those folks that were involved with it.
And Ian, the fireworks, I think, are going to be on the 7th of September,
Yep,
correct?
that's- yep.
Okay. Okay, so that being said, we'll close, we pretty much, public comment at 7:14. Next on the agenda is acceptance of August 7th, 2013 business meeting. Do I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept the August 7th, 2013 business meeting minutes as written.
Do I have a second? Second by Dale Pike, and is there any discussion?
I think, yeah, I would check on the minutes, that section about the,
Which, do you have the page? By any
well, let me
chance?
see if I haven't found it.
4, probably.
It's the section about where we're talking the money for the McAllen Dam.
Okay.
When I looked at that, it seems to be, you know, I think what we did was put that back on the table. And I'm not sure that's what when it says it's approved, the motion was approved at the end of that discussion. I think what was approved, that we put it back on the table, not that we approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of remember.
Yeah. It was tabled.
Yeah, so I don't think that's what it says,
So
right?
you might want to specifically annotate that it was tabled.
Tabled.
Right.
Yep.
The motion was made to table. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Counselor Wright?
Aye.
Counselor Pickering?
Aye.
Counselor Pike?
Aye.
Counselor Carmichael?
Aye.
Counselor Bentley?
Aye.
Counselor Levy?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Next on the agenda is to accept August 7th, 2013 non-public minutes.
Motion to accept the August 7th, 2013 non-public minutes.
Do I have a second? Is Counselor Carmichael. Any discussion?
Which we can.
Seeing none, please call the roll.
Counselor Wright?
Aye.
Counselor Pickering?
Aye.
Counselor Pike?
Aye.
Counselor Carmichael?
Aye.
Counselor Bentley?
Aye.
Counselor Levy?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Next on the agenda is the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first thing on my report is that, again, Old Home Weekend was held 2 weekends ago. I attended it in the early afternoon. The weather was great, and there was a large number of people. The Old Home Committee should be commended for all their work. However, the fireworks, as Council Levy mentioned the night before, had to be postponed due to rain. They will be held on September 7th, beginning at 7 p.m., with live entertainment at the Landroche Field. So it's going to go on September 7th. The next item is, with the new fiscal year beginning, it's time to get ready for the next one. Budget worksheets will be going out to department heads shortly, and will be due back to me by early September. Pursuant to the town charter, I must present a budget by October 15th. In return, the council must propose one to the budget committee by November 15th. The superintendent of schools and I have been reviewing the dates for our respective annual meetings, and I included a draft schedule for the town meeting 2014. Election day is going to be on March 11th, 2014. Deliberative session will be on Saturday, February 8th. That is the last day you can have it, so there's no snow day. There's another number of things that we need to have in there for, like, the last day to post the warrant. We must post the budget, the town must post the budget for the public hearing on New Year's Eve. And we have, the last day we can hold a town budget public hearing is January 14th, 2014. Our schedule is actually different than the schools because ours is set up by charter and not by state law. So we have a different time frame than the schools, so we have to hold it a much earlier than they do. So I just wanted to share that with the council, those time frames. The next is that the Newmarket Business Association is funding a new sign for the waterfront. I included a picture, a mock-up of it in the council packet. It will be a directional sign informing people of places located on the waterfront, as well as indicating there's parking back there that people can use. And again, we're going to, myself, the Public Works Director, a representative from the church, as well as the building official will be putting up mock ones to see where it fits best without interfering with traffic. So that's a donation from the Business Association. And,
Where does the Riverwalk go?
my understanding is it's not as far as it used to because of some right-of-way issues with the condo association, so it's split right now.
Does not go behind the brick portion,
Yeah.
but it does, under the new portion, be reconstructed.
In my, it's not in my written report, I just want to give an update on, that the town is being very vigilant on the mosquito situations with West Nile and Triple E. We have not had any, just received a test this week from the pools that the companies have been taking the mosquitoes out of town. We have not had any tests for either of the two, Triple E or West Nile. However, as you probably read, Exeter and Stratham have both been tested positive. Exeter for Triple E and West Nile and Stratham. We did spray the fields, the parks, today, which will be a barrier in place for a while. So just to protect people and the people doing the fall sports. We do encourage people when they're out, especially around dusk, to wear long sleeve shirts and pants if they can, as well as use mosquito sprays to protect themselves. And that's all I have tonight, and if you have any questions on department heads, I can try to answer those as well.
Counselor Pickering.
I'm sure you're probably not aware, Mr. Administrator, of this, but perhaps you could look into it. I'm just curious, that sign looks rather beautiful, but does it comply with our sign regulations in Newmarket?
Yep.
The size of it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
We'll find out.
Any other Counselor
Oh,
Wright?
so you're saying, yep, I don't know.
I will
and
find
I'll
out, yes, I'll find out, sorry.
There was a yep, we'll find out.
Yep, I'll find out.
Thank you.
Counselor Wright.
Okay, I brought this up before, and I think Councilor Pickering has brought it before. A department head is coming for us shortly, looking for a vehicle. And what I would like to see, and I maybe I'm being misunderstood, but when a department head is before the town council, I'd like to see their inventory of vehicles, the age of the vehicle, and the mileage that they have on them.
Absolutely.
Just some
Yep.
sort of comparison. Okay,
Yep,
that's
we
fine.
are getting
Yep.
that. We are, and
Okay,
I know.
It's been in the process.
Yeah, I know
It's-
two of the three departments have
Yep.
finished it. I've got to just double check with the third.
Yep.
You're right, it has hour, we're gonna have hours for those that
Yep.
have hours, we're gonna have mileage for those that have miles.
Okay,
In the
good.
years and everything. No, that is
I'll
in place.
volunteer to do it if you want.
No,
me to
we've
come
got it
out.
going, so we're all
I'll
set.
get it done in an hour.
Yeah.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you.
The clock's coming back.
No, it's just still running off the meds.
And any other questions? I have just a few, and it's easiest if I go to the page. On page 25, it's under water system.
Okay.
It says, it's easier to read it, I think, also for the public. It's basically talking about the North Main Street water main, because I guess we've done test borings because of the contamination from the gas station. And then it goes on to say, we've met with the state to discuss the Route 108 bike path, sidewalk, drainage improvements, et cetera, and it has been determined that there are conflicts with the state's proposed drainage work and the town's sewer main. And I guess my question was, where did those conflicts come from, and why the surprise now?
The surprise now is because the state is doing their project now and with the widening for the bike lanes. And when they're in there, they're gonna be upgrading some of their drainage. So they were just doing their engineering right after we did ours. Some of the conflicts would be where they have proposed to put drainage, we have water lines there.
Okay.
The problem is, in this situation, the state trumps the town. So we have to come out and come up with an alternative in that situation. We've been working with District 6 as well as the state. We met with them, I want to say about a month ago, to begin discussions on the conflicts. And we're still in the process of doing so. We're trying to solve the number of conflicts. Again, it's where we're trying to reduce the number of cuts that we would have in the road, trying to reduce the number of cross pipes that we can. And
So when there's a conflict like this, right? Do they help pay for it?
no.
So.
Well, let me take it back. They do, but it's a formula on the basis of what the value of the pipes are in there. The pipes that we have are so old.
I know the
There's no
50-year,
value.
well, that's
Yeah.
another question I have, but before we get to that, so basically, they're saying it's not gonna work, so we have to make the changes and we have to pay for it.
Yes.
And we found out about this,
About a month ago.
and this whole thing was started roughly when?
Before I got here.
I guess
About a year.
the reason I'm asking is because I would have assumed that they would have known that there was contamination when this whole thing was
Oh.
initiated, so why the big surprise now that?
Well, I think there's two different things here. I'm not talking about the contamination portion. I'm talking about the pipes and the drainage with the state. That's not with the contamination. This is just the normal operations of the.
But the contamination has nothing to do with the fact that we have to make some changes?
No,
Okay.
that has to do with where the pipes are going and where their pipes are going, and we need to make sure that they don't cross each other in
All right.
situations like that.
That probably should have been 2 paragraphs.
Yes.
Okay. I'll get to that
Otherwise
after,
it's
because I have, but anyway, I don't want, Counselor, wow, it's right, it's like within a quarter of a second.
Blurry.
Give it to him.
This is
I'll
as
take it.
exciting as it gets.
Yeah, ju-
Counselor Pickering and then Wright.
No, go ahead.
Okay, Larry.
In reference to the Public Works Department, you mentioning Ash Swamp Road, and for the listening audience, my end of the road was not paved first, so I gotta get that out. They did a super job on the other end of the road, preparing that road. The Public Works Department, working in conjunction with the Bell and Flynn, they removed many obstacles that the plows were hitting, ledges sticking out on the side of the road. Really did a super job, I thought, prepping that road. And that's the most important part. It's like painting a house. You gotta wash it before you paint it and scrape it. And it seems like this has been done up right this time. And we're spending a lot of money, and I think that was very crucial. And I just want to be sure you send
Well-
my personal thanks to the crew that helped make that happen.
Yeah, they're a good
And-
company, Bill and Flynn. Is that it, Larry?
Yes, thank you.
Counsel-
And Mr. Wright?
Counselor Wright?
You brought up contamination. If contamination is found, who's responsible for the cleanup?
That is, usually that goes through the oil, I'm trying to remember the exact board through the state, but it's through DOT, or Department of Safety. It's an oil board. That extra 9/10 of a cent that you pay on the gas, it's a creation of an insurance fund up there that they come in and they'll pay for that. It's
Okay.
not the town.
Yeah.
So, just to his question, so when someone buys a piece of property and it's contaminated, they don't take on that responsibility?
That's different. I'm saying if there was a large contamination, for example, when it comes on.
Like the gas station?
Right, if there was a leak, and gas stations are difficult to insure because of leaks and the situation after. So the states create a pool that it falls for an insurance company. So that 9/10 of a cent that you pay extra on the gas, the
So
state
when
helps funds that.
when there's a problem, right, let's take it out of Newmarket for a minute. I remember where the old Tweeter, et cetera, was on Woodbury Ave, used to be a gas station
Yep.
years ago. When that property became available, if someone bought it, right, and they had to do mitigation, are you saying the state would pay?
Not always. It's not as simple black and white. It depends on
Okay.
who they can determine was at fault.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because when something changes
Yeah.
hands like this, is it,
We don't have involvement. The town has no involvement. It's either a state or it's a
side of the
DES issue.
landowner?
Right, or
right?
DES. We have no involvement in that,
Okay,
unless it was our pumps. I mean, that would be the only situation, but,
okay. Okay, I thought it was worth asking.
yeah.
Just a couple more.
Mhm.
On page 27, it's about the sewer system.
Okay.
So we have these bike paths, I guess, that we've agreed to do between Newmarket to, it says, the state of New Hampshire is working on a bike path from Newmarket to Durham. A part of the project is improving the drainage on North Main Street. This will require the town to move the water and sewer mains. That's sort of why I was
Yep,
bringing this
exactly what
up.
I'm saying.
The state will contribute to the cost to move the water and sewer mains based on the remaining useful life of the water and sewer. Obviously, the 50 years is gone, that's
Yeah.
their useful life. Based on the useful life, the water and sewer have no, they can't be used anymore, so there's no money coming from the state of New Hampshire.
Yep.
So my question is, if the state isn't gonna contribute, are we on the hook?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I couldn't help but ask the question, is this a priority? Because,
North Main Street, it's been a priority for a while.
do we have any idea how much it's gonna cost?
Not yet, that's what we're determining. That's, the extra cost is $16,000 for engineering to solve the sewer conflicts.
See, I think the reason I'm asking about it is I'm sitting here going, obviously, money's tight.
Yeah.
This is just basically going from that North Main Street area to Durham.
Correct. It's
Right.
going from about Bay Road up, correct?
And, I don't know what the gross cost is. I mean, they say here it's 2,700 linear feet for one, I couldn't really extrapolate. Do you know what are we
I
talking?
don't off the top of my head, I don't.
We talking hundreds of thousands?
I don't think plural, but I think it's probably over 100.
And are we splitting that with Durham, or how's that gonna work?
Well, they don't hook into our sewer system.
So we have to do this whole thing?
Yeah, we don't, Durham has their own sewer system, we have our sewer system. So we don't, and their sewer system doesn't even come near whereas ours do. The pipes up in that area are old, as we know, and they're actually clogged in a lot of areas with just minerals that have been building up over time. I think the water and sewer superintendent showed a picture of
Yeah,
it
very tiny to
a
begin
while,
with.
right. So water flows up there is very difficult. And I know that's one of the big issues for any development on North Main, is that the water flows need to be improved to help if you had a larger,
Yeah, just so you know, my question was not really with respect to not fixing the sewer. My question was, how much additional money is gonna?
We don't know yet.
No, because of the bike path. I mean, how much is that is it adding?
oh, it's not because of, we don't have.
that
to-
adding anything
I
to
think
this?
No, the bike path does not add anything, because there's two projects.
Yeah,
There's the South Main Street bike path. North Main Street is, in 108, is a much larger project that goes from Durham to Newmarket. It's the widening of 108. It's not just bike path, but bike paths are part of it. But it's the reconstruction and widening of 108. We heard some of it is also to improve where the flooding happens on 108 near the boat area. So it's not just, I don't want people to think it's just a bike path that they're doing. What the state's redoing.
But
108.
and I'll leave it at this, just because we're not gonna act on this right now or anything. But the reason I'm asking is, it says the state of New Hampshire is working on a bike path from Newmarket to Durham. A part of this project is improving the drainage on North Main Street. This will require the town to move the water and sewer mains. So the way I'm sorry, but the
Yeah.
way I read this,
I understand.
it was the bike path that was causing us to do a fair amount of movement or mitigation to this, no pun intended.
Yeah.
And
It's
That's why I'm
We
asking.
already had this plan, the bike path is creating the issue, to go along with what I was stating before, that when they came in with their drainage, they said, their drainage pipe's gotta go there, and we have a water line going through,
all right.
so we can't have it there. So it's two different, this is the same topic as the one before.
Just seemed to me that,
Yep.
that it was adding additional
No.
money because of the bike path.
No, but
Anyway.
I can tell you that, and I will throw this out before we get to it, when we do the South Main Street bike path, we cannot, when it's open, we cannot do work, because if we did so, since federal money's involved, we would have to follow the Davis-Bacon rules, which would almost double the cost of any projects we do down there. So while it would make sense that once the road's open, you try to improve what's in there, the cost would be so prohibitive to us that we can't do it. So,
All right.
because it's federal funds.
I was just trying to get a
Yep.
handle on how much this whole thing's gonna be.
And we don't know that yet.
All right, just one more. Oh, I'm sorry. Counselor,
Pike.
Pike, and then, well, I get Carmichael too, but go Counselor Pike and then Carmichael.
Well, I think you're touching on what I was getting at, is it sounds like the pipes need to be replaced. So there is some substantially on the North Main Street project a benefit in replacing the pipes.
Yes.
And did I hear you, or maybe it isn't apply for this project, are they able to be some savings to Newmarket for replacing the pipes at a time when the road's going to be torn up anyways? Do we benefit in that way?
And that's part of the discussion we had, was that, yes, we're going to try to do it as close as time as when they're going to be doing, the state's going to be doing their project, so you don't have a finished road, and then we come back and open it up to do other work. We may have a season which has temporary pavement for some of the cuts, but it won't be a long period of time. We're trying to schedule it together.
Counselor Carmichael, did that answer your question, Counselor Pike? Counselor Carmichael?
Yeah, on page 21, pedestrian bridge,
Yep.
that's still ongoing then?
Yeah, we're going to come before the council on the next workshop in September 18th to give an update and look for guidance from the council where to go.
It says in here that there was an August 21st meeting today.
Yep.
Any update on that, or?
We're going to be coming September 18th with
To
all the
tell us
final
what happened.
information. Yep.
Okay.
So just to, and this is probably the meeting to do this because we don't have a huge agenda tonight, so I'd like to at least get some of these questions out so you can have answers for us. To the question that Counselor Carmichael just asked, it's talking about the fact that it looks like this pedestrian bridge is going to be, I'll just read it. The town would have to raise and seek additional funding in the amount of $600,000. 720 as the project budget with federal funds is capped at 631. So we're, you know, I can't remember exactly, but I thought the original deal was between 6 and 700
Right. It
grand.
about doubled in cost.
Okay, and then, you know, I guess the question became, did we, you know, could we have an open bridge? Could we have it with a top without heat? You know, a variety of options. I'll tell you right now, if we have to come up with another 600 grand, I'm completely against that.
And we understand that. We're coming forward on September 18th with a plan. This is one option, we'd go down that route, but we're also looking, and before we get all the information, we have to check, since it's federal money involved, we have to check with the feds to make sure we're lined up. So there was we had a meeting today, we talked about it, we have some ideas, we need to talk with the feds first to see what we can do with it.
Okay. Counselor Bentley? Oh,
On page 38, Mr. Administrator, I think I asked, and I was confused with the answer, and now I'm confused when I read it. We're talking about, back to bike paths,
Okay.
but 2010 town meeting warrant article for the sum of $809,000. I'd asked a couple meetings back, because number one, it seemed really high. It's the bike path just from the Irving to the Newmarket, Newfields town line. I don't know if it's made of gold, but $809,000 to go 1 mile. I guess my confusion is, we have received confirmation that the NHDOT, the state will be
DOT,
providing matching funds, so the entire project will be funded 100% without the need for any local matching funds. Town has issued an RFQ. We're paying 809 and they're paying 809?
We're not paying 809.
They're paying 809, we're not paying anything?
No.
we're gonna pay for the
Why
engineer?
are we issuing the
No,
RFQ then?
because it's we were granted
Okay.
$800,000 from the state. We are not paying anything. We had to make sure that was there. So this is a grant. If it goes above it, we only do it as much as we have till 809.
Okay.
So it's 809. We're not spending any money on it. When I met with them, the DOT thought there was a match from us, and we said, no, if you read the agreement that we had, 80% comes from the Federal Highway Administration, 20% comes from the state. The state got panicked at that point because they said, where are we going to find the money? We didn't think they were going to. They surprisingly found it. So they're going to, to be quite honest, this number may be low because of the fact that you have to have right-of-way acquisitions. Because that's part of the project. But again, only thing we're doing is issuing the RFQ, and when an engineering firm comes on, they're the ones who are going to be managing the project.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on his, because I had bicycle path from Irving Station 809, so
Yep.
I'm glad you brought it up. So the engineering will also be covered by them?
Yeah, well, it'll be covered all under this
The
money.
whole kit and caboodle?
All kit and caboodle. There's not
Okay.
going to be any town money.
Counselor Pickering
except
and
our
then,
time.
Counselor Pickering and then Counselor Wright.
Grant writers at Town Hall, how many do we have and who are they?
I mean, official grant writers?
Right, I mean,
We don't
is
have
there
any
anybody
official.
officially?
We have no official grant writers. I would say that the town planner administers the community development grants that we have. She's the one who's running this project.
Yeah, I'm not talking about just this project, but any project that we can get grants for.
It depends on which department it is. I mean, I can write grants, the finance administrator writes grants, the chief of police writes grants. If it's something to do with our departments, we all write them. Then if it falls under our purview, we administer them. So it's not a person just dedicated to grants. It's what we find in our daily operations. I know a lot of people throw out there, oh, we should hire a grant writer.
Well, that's,
But I could tell you that was a trend probably about 15 years
Yeah.
ago, and they never made back the money that they got.
I mean, I'm not advocating that,
Yeah.
but what I think I would like to advocate would be future hirees in certain positions should have that skill.
And we do. We have, we will, and we make sure if we can get somebody who can do that, we'll bring them in.
Thanks.
Counselor Wright.
On the $800,000 bike path.
Yes.
Does the state write us a check first before we start?
Yes, we do not.
Okay, fine. All right, just,
It's like the pension funds?
Yeah.
A little worried about that.
I just
Trust
wanted
me,
to bring it up
If
because,
it comes up that we don't get the money first, yeah.
okay, I
Well,
just
you
want
know,
to make sure.
and I'm glad we had the discussion, because these are big, you aggregate, the water and the sewer and this pedestrian bridge and this other thing, you're up to several $1 million
Yep.
for very little bang for the buck in the great scheme of things. I mean, I know some of this work has to be done, it just seems like it's a lot. That being said, any other questions regarding the department reports? The last thing I'd just say is, I'm not going to ask tonight because you've requested to not get into the subject. But I do have, and I think others have a couple of questions regarding the handbook. So, yeah.
When we get to it on the agenda.
Should we talk about that at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So that's that for that. Any department, any counselor and committee reports that they want to talk about planning? I know we've had a planning board meeting.
Yeah, I can mention planning if you want.
Give us a little
Yep,
update.
Rockingham Junction LLC was for the planning board, and basically, they're going to be rehabbing the depot station on the Newmarket Newfields line. What makes it interesting, a small portion of the real estate or the building is in Newmarket, the rest of the Newfields, but majority of the park and the sewer is in the Newmarket town property. And that was continued on, and then, let's see, Chingburn Builders are before us, and they submitted an application, as accepted for a, trying to think how many, for a 42 house lot and open space where the Rockingham County Golf Course is.
Very good.
Can I ask, Dan, what happens to that if they, I mean, it seems to be I was scanning the minutes, and it seems like the controversy is that, that access road, the road in the term is escaping me, but the road, the comments about how long the road is,
They're actually, Chimberg Builders is looking for 3 variances. And I believe, and we're actually going to be doing a site walk. I don't exactly have the date for that, but
September 7th
September
at 8 a.m.
7th at 8 a.m., yeah. So, but basically, I'm trying to think of one of the variances for the, how long the road is going in the cul-de-sac. The other one is for the width of the road, and the other one, I believe, is some of the parcels or lots are within the 50-foot buffer. of the wetland protection, so.
So is the fact that things get built out there really dependent on those?
At this point, for the 52 lots, it would be dependent on those waivers.
Do you remember how many waivers there were, Dan, roughly?
Three at this point.
Just, I got a question, sorry.
Yep.
Is it a waiver or is it a variance?
Excuse me, variance,
Okay.
yeah.
I just
excuse
want to
me.
make sure,
Yeah.
there's two different
Right,
things there.
yeah.
Variance is for the
Variance,
zoning.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Councilor Carmichael?
Yes, Counselor Wright, could you tell us a little bit what's happening with the, up and back here with the old Gulf Station? They said they were going to put a restaurant in there, and then there was going to be a supermarket in the back.
Right, the restaurant is
How's that
approved,
coming
restaurant is
along?
approved, and I'm trying to think of the owners, I believe the Black Trumpet.
Evan and Denise Mallet of the
Yeah.
Black Trumpet Bistro in Portsmouth. It's going to
Right.
be called Hope Still Garage.
Right.
Recently, I just got an email.
And that,
That's been approved.
I had read an article probably over a month ago that
Right.
said they were going to open it in August, so
Right.
it's not open,
No.
so.
You had
the wrong year.
And also the 9,600 square foot retail space and the library, back of the library, that's also been approved.
And any idea when this
No.
winter, or?
No,
Nothing?
no idea.
Thank you.
Just to that question, Steve, and is there a variance that they need to come to us?
Not a
for?
variance, we just, an easement was already granted a while back. It's the access across the land where the library is, where the entrance is now, that they have a variance to, an easement to access their lot through there. There
Is
was
that
never-
coming to the council?
The
or-
council just needs to need to authorize me to sign it, so.
Okay, so that will require a vote from
Yep.
us, and, okay.
Which, I mean, I'm probably putting belts and suspenders because it looks like there was a vote at one point already granting it. We just don't have a written easement, so.
Could you get us maybe just a quick history, could you get us a copy of that if there was a vote taken?
Yeah.
Just so we can see it?
Yep.
Okay. And that's pretty, Councilor Pike again?
Well, it was interesting because it came up at our last council meeting. We talked about parking on Elm
That's
Street.
why I was wondering.
And it was, that was discussed at the planning board meeting, and they said more or less too expensive, or at least it would be too expensive for any of the developer to pay for it. I think that was something that was discussed by both groups. So it doesn't sound like they think that's on the table anymore, I know.
And we are looking at all our options, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it at that for now. Hopefully, we'll have the options soon enough. Councilor Pickering?
And when you get to all the options, some of them might include parking in front of the library where they used to park.
Yes, yes.
Everybody parks there. It's printed all over the roadway, no parking, but nobody reads that. And personally, I don't see any reason. They park there for the last 100 years. I don't understand why that's a problem. If you put the spots maybe at an angle or whatever that's particularly safe, I don't see where there's a problem. You could get at least 3 more right in the front there.
While we're on that, wasn't the library concerned about angle parking, or is that in a different spot? Remember they didn't want
In the back of the library.
In the back.
So that's not the...
They are very happy with the parking
Okay,
rates.
so they're
That
good.
went back and forth a couple times. And
One of the things I did was before this easement went any further, I met with the library trustees. And I said, is there any issues with what's being proposed? And I had Mr. Chimberg in there and his crew, and they were on the record in their minutes saying, no, there were no issues.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure, I wanted to go meet with them.
But to Dale's question, the idea of perhaps at least
It's not dead.
looking at that option
Yes.
is not, because also I think the other developer thought that they might do some off-site improvements, so maybe we can get some cooperation.
Well, and that's what it is. It's not a one-person solution. We need to have, we need to pull out a bunch of things to try to solve it.
Yeah, I mean, because we're working with people to try to make it more flexible for them, so.
Right.
Okay. Good. Councilor Pickering, again, or yours?
No, I'll hold off, thank you.
Okay. The only, is there any other reports? We do have an Economic Development Committee meeting tomorrow at 5:30. I'm assuming it's going to be in Chambers.
Yep.
And anybody in the public that's interested in coming, we're going to have a report, the first part of the report from the consultant. So I think you can either watch it on tape, I'm assuming it's going to be taped, or you can be here and get a copy of the report and I'm sure we'll have some made for people, et cetera.
If we get one, yeah.
And that's it on that.
You say that was 5:30?
5:30 tomorrow, yeah. But he is coming up with the first part of it.
He's coming up with, and again, he's coming up with background information, regional trends, and not down yet to the nitty-gritty of Newmarket alone, but he's given the first part of it,
Yeah,
correct?
and we're going to have something tangible to look at, I'm assuming.
That's what I'm assuming as well.
You might want to just follow me.
I
'cause
did,
If
and
we
he
don't
said
have
he-
if we don't have something to
I
look
did.
at, I'm not.
I understand.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to look at we have two presentations, one of which is Finance Director Angel.
Good evening, I'm Matt Angel, I'm the Interim Finance Director, and I'm going to do a presentation on the financial health of the town, and trying to get the projector going here. Okay. Overall, I just want to say that the financial picture of the town looks very good. I'm very pleased with the direction that the town has gone in financially for this year. I don't know if you can see that. All right.
Is it basically the PowerPoint?
It is. It is.
So you can
Okay,
leave the lights
we'll just
on.
do it this way,
Yeah,
all right?
Public can see it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right.
We have to be in the dark.
I get extra copies, so I'll just give them to him.
Okay. The general fund's unreserved fund balance, now this would be in a corporation, the retained earnings for the corporation. It increased as compared to last year by just over $1 million. So currently it's $2.3 million. And of that, if you were to apply that to the fund balance policy, it's going to be about $1.2 million that's going to be available for town meeting to expend. If we move on to the next item, what I want to tell you is why this increased so greatly. First is motor vehicle permits exceeded its budget by just over $90,000. Now, this is just because the taxpayers have been buying newer vehicles. The next item is building permits. That exceeded our budget revenue by almost $16,000. That's primarily because of the Newmarket Mills construction. And then finally for this page, ambulant receipts exceeded its budget by $66,000 as well. Okay, I'm going to skip to the next page. Now, here's some surprises that we had for revenue this year. The first one is the sale of property, and primarily the old highway building. That brought in, or the sale of the properties brought in $234,000. Next, we closed the parking fund, so we had to transfer in what was available in the parking fund to the general fund, increased fund balance by $188,000. Now let's look at some of the expenditures. We had...
Now, just one quick question on the parking fund. I know we closed it.
Yes.
Is there's no more, at this time, revenues coming in from any leases or rentals, correct?
Any revenues that come in go to the general fund now.
Automatically?
Automatically.
So we don't have this segregated fund anymore?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's talk about some expenditures. Now, we had some employee vacancies during the year, and what happened is for buildings and grounds, we had unused appropriation of almost $22,000. The police department was almost $40,000, and the fire department was almost $23,000. Now, due to those vacancies and the use of consultants during the year, the town didn't use health insurance of $91,000, New Hampshire retirement of $36,000, and FICA and Medicare of $20,000.
Wow.
Now, I just want to quickly talk about some of the obligations that are outstanding. First, we're going to first talk about, these are bond issues and some employee benefits. Now, the first one is open land acquisition. That's a bond issue that's outstanding for $1 million. The next one is downtown TIF improvements. for $750,000. I have a little note there just to let you know that 100% of that bond is funded through a capital reserve fund, and we did a transfer from that capital reserve fund earlier this fiscal year. Next are employee, it's compensated absences. Termination benefits is a simple term for me to use, but basically, if every single employee of the town were to leave on June 30, it would cost the general fund $198,000. Okay?
Councilor Pike has a quick question for you.
Just, could you explain, just to use the open land acquisition of $1 million, what it means that we have an obligation of $1 million?
Okay. That obligation of $1 million is like a mortgage on someone's property. We have $1 million mortgage on the town that the town is paying for through its tax rate. It's about $100,000 a year.
The town, a number of years ago, issued bonds to purchase conservation land.
Yes.
That's the $1 million.
Okay, this has been spent in the
Yeah.
past, it's just.
It's just that,
Right.
that's what we have.
Paying it off,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Do you know what the starting point was? How much has been paid down, Matt?
No, I don't have that off the top of my head, although I think I can probably get it really quick. We'll get it in a second,
that's
okay?
Thank you.
Next, business-type activities. We have 3 bonds as well. The Creighton Street pump outfall for $711,000. There's a drinking water SRF loan for $163,000. The clean water SRF loan, which is the water meters, for $446,500. I think that's also the New Village construction. And then also for water and sewer, we have termination or compensated absence benefits of $26,000. This is sick and vacation accruals. Okay? All right. Now, the next slide here, I'm really bringing this up only because it's I'm seeing a trend of moving away from using capital reserve funds, which means that the town would have to bond for some of its larger purchases. And what I wanted to let you know is how much debt the town can assume based upon the state statutes. First, the general fund. It's based upon 3% of the base valuation, and the general fund can carry just over $19 million worth of debt. And if you saw from the prior page, it's really not that much. We're not near that limit. Also, the water fund can carry a debt load of $67 million because it's 10% of the base valuation, where wastewater has no limit whatsoever. Let's move on to the next page. I just want to quickly talk about the financial risks that the town's going to see in the next year. First is preparing for the Affordable Care Act, and what we're doing is we're really determining the first threshold that we have to meet, which is whether we are going to be a large business or not, and I believe that we are, but we're working on that. Also, secondly, is to recommend some sort of funding mechanism for the compensated absences. Currently, there are 9 employees that are eligible to retire, and there is some. I want to fund those so that there is no risk to the general fund budget. And then finally, we're trying to implement a chart of accounts, and we tried to implement it last week, but the accounting software company put a little stop to that. But we're going to be moving ahead with that very shortly. Okay. The next is we need to work on financial literacy. Basically, we've been using some outdated terminology. First, there was a financial accounting statement, GASB 54, which dealt with fund balance reporting. Now, for the past year and a half, I've been using the old fund balance terminology that everyone knows, just to get through a lot of the issues that the town has dealt with. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be presenting some of the more modern terminology to try to transition everyone to that. And I'll be using terms from the old fund balance to the new fund balance. And then finally, GASB 68, which really deals with the unfunded liability of the New Hampshire retirement system. The town of Newmarket's going to have to record a portion of that unfunded liability on the town's financial statements. And that's going to happen, I believe, the year after next. Okay? Now, as always, any financial figures that I use here are going to change subject to the audit, which is actually going to start next week. All right?
Questions?
Yes.
Any lights? Counselor Pike?
Any ballpark for what that unfunded pension a year and a half from now is? What order of magnitude about what you're talking about?
We're just going to be a sliver of a large pie. That's all I can really gauge it to be. And they're trying to go through a education process to make sure all the municipalities understand what GASB 68 says.
Are they still fighting over the assumptions, or is that worked out?
I'm sure it's pretty much worked out. It's now going to be, they're going to have to hire an actuary to actually determine what Newmarket's share of that liability is, and they haven't done that yet.
Do you think that's going to, oh, I'm sorry, Counselor, well, since it's on that question, is that going to, do you think, spike some lawsuits from different towns who may question, you know, how they're arriving at these percentages? Because this could impact a lot of town budgets, couldn't it?
It's for financial presentation only. It's not necessarily going to be for budgets. The funding for the New Hampshire retirement system is set in a particular manner. It's based upon the percentage of payroll. So they're going to have to increase that percentage of payroll. In other states, they actually throw in an extra number for that unfunded liability. So for New Hampshire, the answer is no, it's not going to affect your general fund budget. It affected it last year.
That's why so it's not going to affect it going forward?
Well, it's going to be flat for next year, and I bet you it's going to increase the year after.
Okay. Okay.
If you want just a quick number for the statewide, it's about a $2.5 billion difference between the liabilities and the assets of the retirement system in 2008.
So how do they come up with Newmarket share?
They'll take every employee in
That
this,
we've had? Will it just be based on what actual employees that we've had?
yeah.
Yes.
When we're talking the retirement system, you're also including the state employees. This isn't just a municipal retirement system, it's
So
all
anybody that
state.
works for the state that lives in
States?
Newmarket
No,
will be?
no.
No.
State's in charge of the state, but the
Okay.
$2 billion liability differential is a statewide problem. It's not just cities and towns, it's not just schools, not just counties, not just the state, we're all in it together. So when you get down to it, the sliver that we are is going to be much, much smaller. I mean, I don't want everybody to think it's like millions or hundreds of millions that we're going to owe. We're not
Well,
like,
we're not going to be at that kind of money, but
Well, and you're talking about, I think if I understood you, it's going to add a percentage to our employee costs going forward, is what?
The state will add a percentage.
right.
Right.
Yeah,
because
but-
they're
but-
downshifting it to more and more
Right.
to the
Yeah.
local communities.
Yeah, Steve, you said $2.5 billion using 2008 figures.
That's correct.
So we don't have the 2012
Not
or?
yet. I don't have it off the top of my
Rob,
head.
just so it's
Yeah.
going to be.
I have a quick answer to the chair's question about the open space land acquisition. The original bond issue was for $2 million.
So it's about halfway paid off. Do
Exactly.
you know when it started?
I don't have that exact date, but I also noticed that the downtown TIF started off at $1.5 million, and that's halfway through as well.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Pickering?
This is in reference to obligations, and just as an example, employee termination benefits,
Yep.
198,000. Now that's if every employee decided to leave at the same time.
Yes.
That total number. So you're saying we have to fund that possibility?
No. My concern is if an employee left at the end of a budget year, I may not have enough funds to fund that. Okay? So what I'm asking for is to have a capital reserve fund. I'm not asking you right now, but I'm giving you guys notice that I'm going to ask to have a capital reserve fund created to fund a portion of that liability. So that if we have a termination or a separation, that it's not coming from the appropriation, the general fund appropriation, but rather from the capital reserve fund. This is actually a common funding mechanism for municipalities in New Hampshire.
No, I think it makes some sense. I just was questioning, do we have to have the whole amount in there?
Nope, nope. All I'm going to ask for is to fund 100% of the 9 employees who are currently eligible to retire,
Yeah.
and then a percentage of the remaining employees.
I mean, it's just good budgeting to do that. It makes
Yes,
a lot of
exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
Very refreshing, and I personally would like to thank you for this. It's very simplified, and my, how times have changed. I'm pleased. Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Wright.
Matt, the unreserved fund balance increased close to $1 million.
Yes,
And we're very fortunate because we sold the old highway building for $230,
yes,
and we closed the downtown parking. That came to $440,000
yeah.
out of the million.
Yeah.
You see in your crystal ball anything of that magnitude?
With this current year?
Yeah. Because it's nice to look at the $1 million, we really come down and look at it. You know, a large portion, or
Yeah.
close to half, is from,
Well, we're just the first month into the year.
yeah.
For the first 6 months, I usually fret about the liabilities rather than the performance. So right now, I'm concerned more about compensated absences and a few other things, like funding for a new accounting system, possibly. But we will be talking about that much later.
And I've been looking at the list of town-owned properties, and I don't see any large ones of the magnitude of the highway facility, but I've got to get the history on a number of them to see what types of prohibitions of sale or what kind of situation like that
Right.
are out there. Or, really, do we want to sell them? Because it may be better to hold them right now because of,
Right.
certain developments that you may not want or situations like that. So we're going through that list now.
Yeah.
But there's no huge ones.
Right, just to follow up, you mentioned accounting systems. They're not cheap.
They're not cheap.
Yeah, could you give us a ballpark figure? I mean, you obviously did.
Probably about ballpark.
Yeah, this is a literal ballpark. The school district paid $55,000 for their system, and it's just a basic general ledger, payroll, AP package. We're not going to have a basic system.
Right.
My guess it's going to be, depending upon whether we can migrate to a system owned by the current company or whether we have to go out to bid, it could run between $100,000 to $300,000 plus.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Bentley.
Now, have you or anyone, or Mr. Minister, spoken about the effect of Obamacare when that comes on our
Yes.
finances?
Yes,
We have, you have, someone else.
the administrator and I have spoken about it, and whether there are going to be hard decisions made or not.
Things we'll have to look at is the number of hours of employees. We have to, much like you're hearing in businesses across the country, we're going to have to do the same thing. We're right now on the cusp of whether or not we're a large business that would fall under everything or a small one. And we're just trying to determine right there what we can or cannot do. We're lucky that we got a little bit of a stay because they delayed it, the implementation.
That was going to be my question.
Yes, they delayed it, so we've got a stay so we can work on it longer.
And they may,
It may not come to fruition,
yeah,
but we
they're
have,
saying it may be, I'm not saying it's going to be indefinitely, but it
Right.
could be a while.
but we need to get ready for it just in case it comes up all of a sudden. So we're reviewing everybody's hours to the point that we're telling department heads now that, you've got employees that are part-time that are averaging over the 32 hours. You can't have that. I mean, you can't, and the other thing is you can't have it also for the retirement system because after 32 hours, we need to contribute for the retirement. So we're looking at it for everything.
Counselor Pike.
Just on that, when you said that accounting system, what's the usual lifespan? When you buy it for 100 and 300, what do you expect?
I've seen municipalities on the same system for the last 30 years. And Usually
this
it's
could be
about
for
10
a
years.
long-
It could be for a long time.
Usually you
There-
see about 10 to.
Yeah.
Quicken wouldn't be good enough?
Contrary to no. I've heard that many times, no.
Okay.
A lot of it is the billing side.
Yes.
It's just that we have the unique billing that we have to do, that we have to have the different types of software.
Yeah. The risk comes because the underlying database software was sold to a different company. And the current Harris Computer has said that they are going to migrate everyone off at some point in the future, but they have not set a timeline. So now's the time to start setting aside funds for that eventuality.
600, did you say 600,000?
300,000 plus.
Yeah, that seems a little.
100. You said 100 to 300,000.
Seems a little excessive.
100 to 300,000.
My my hearing, it's probably closer to if I would narrow it down shorter, the 150 to 200,000.
Okay.
I mean, it seems a little
It's
high
not
to me.
it's not cheap. It's not.
Yeah, I've seen accounting systems run on $700,000 servers, so.
But for a community our size, it's probably close to the 150. The big thing that we have is utility billings.
Yes.
That, I mean, again, when we're saying that money, it's going to be divided up between the areas that are using it. So some of it will be coming from the enterprise funds. It's not all coming right from the tax rate. So we are going to be start putting money aside in CIP to begin to address it.
Just so we're clear, this isn't happening yesterday.
No.
And this will be fully vetted with the council, I'm
Oh.
assuming.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
We have several years.
I just thought I'd
to
bring
work
it up
this
because
out.
it seems, okay. This is very good, Matt. I just had a couple of questions. It would have been great if we had had this a little bit earlier, just because we could have reviewed it. But, and I'm not suggesting we sell any property in particular, but this year, the property we sold, I think we got, what'd you say, a couple of $100,000 for one of them?
That was at 234. We only sold one this year. Which was the,
And in no way am I suggesting to sell the Wilson property, but just to put it in perspective, that was north of 600,000 when we bought it. So I think if we could get, and I know you're working on it, if we could just get a list of the properties that might be at least, excuse me, practical to evaluate, whether we have a clean title or deed or whatever at this point, I think doesn't matter, because I think we should probably try to gauge the interest from the council, and then do all the due diligence, not to have to waste all the time doing the due diligence if there's no way we're going to sell it.
Yep.
Because then we could really, the market is ticking up a little
Yep.
bit. There is some movement, so I think we should at least consider that. And just, when you say there were vacancies, Matt, for, buildings and grounds and the fire department, police, et cetera, and then I think you made a comment, and I just want to make sure I heard you right. You said we fill those holes with, I don't mean,
Yeah.
that employment.
Yes.
With private entities?
Oh,
Did
okay.
you say something like that?
No, I said with the vacancies, plus the private contractors.
Okay.
You saved on employee benefits,
Okay.
okay?
So the private contractors were not in lieu of these vacancies?
the private contractors were the finance director and assessing. And we're
Okay.
and as of right now, we're continuing down that route. 'Cause
Yeah, well, my purpose of me bringing it up, if we had a pretty good year in general, we ran the town, I think, pretty well, we have a reasonable surplus. The surplus wasn't all cars and the other stuff, because that certainly doesn't make up, over $1 million. But, it might be a time to evaluate whether or not it makes sense to do some of this privately.
Yeah, and that's
you-
absolutely, I mean, I think the big one was,
If not now, when?
right, the big one that we tried was assessing. I mean, assessing, there's always been a town assessor who was on staff here. When I came on and found out the assessor was retiring, I think the day after, I knew of a contracted firm, we out to bid and got the bids in, and that's when we realized we're gonna see a significant savings by bringing them in. Not only are we seeing a savings, we're actually seeing, I would say, an increase in productivity, because they have a certain rate that for the less money, we're actually getting 3 employees. So we have so it's actually, we're doing more work.
Yeah.
So, and yes, we're gonna look at anything that we can do to contract out.
Yeah, particularly when someone's left. I mean,
Yep.
you can't pick a better time than that. Counselor Pickering?
Just to clear up a misconception that some of the folks out there in the public have, when we discuss properties in general, the town has 101 properties, ownership of 101 properties, of which there are 24 that have buildings on them. Now, there's all kinds of tweets out there on Facebook and other areas that, you know, we have 101 buildings. We've been foreclosing on all these people, and I mean, that's just not the case. It's 24 sites that have buildings on them, and of course, the town hall, police department, fire department, all the town buildings, those make up most of the buildings, and 101 properties without buildings on them. They may be landlocked, there's, again, we need that list.
Right, conservation lands, parking lots.
Absolutely.
Places where there are wellheads, pumping stations.
Yeah.
That's what makes up, I would say, 97% of all that land. Is town properties that have some other purpose than what people would just think of. It may be owned by the town, but it's for either conservation purposes or things that we need to do to do our operations. The other small piece are usually, we talked about the Wilson property.
Ham property.
The Ham property. There's, I believe, only one or two that are actually tax deeded that we could sell. I don't even think we're in the time frame yet to be able to sell any of the tax deeded properties at this point because we have to follow a certain procedure there as well. So there are some that we are looking at that we can get, we could do.
Do you think we can get that list in September?
Yeah, as I said, I've said, yeah, that we could.
Okay.
Did I finish?
Yeah.
And again, when you speak about the Wilson property, the market was at the peak at the time,
Yep.
and so wasn't the price the town paid
Right.
for it. To me, it obviously would make a lot of sense to be selling when we're not anywhere near the peak, but there are others that perhaps would fall under a category we'll never use, and maybe we should move it
Yep.
and get it back on the tax rolls.
And just so we're clear, I didn't bring up that, the Wilson, because I was thinking of selling it. I just brought it up because it was quite a bit north of what the crematorium was filled on,
Right.
as far as cost. Counselor Bentley.
Well, I'm glad Councilor Pickering brought that up. I had a few emails I was copied on some of the 101 properties, and correct, Creighton Street, the pump station, some of those things that, but I think, to your point, Mr. Chair, if we get, and Mr. Administrator, if we get to the list, we can put all that to rest. There's rumors going on now, and there's, we're worrying about getting businesses here, but we can't, we have all these properties. So I think if we see that, because I didn't know the town owned that parking lot on Lamprey Street.
Yeah.
So some of those things are some quick solutions. Hey, does someone want to lease it from us? Do we sell it for parking? That little one I keep bringing up right over 108, it's, not anything great, right over the railroad tracks, that
Right.
house that burnt down. But maybe someone on 108 would want to buy that doesn't have sufficient parking. Maybe you could put 8 cars there, so if
We got
saw
an
that
email,
list,
they
we
want to
could-
buy the parking lot across from Bryant Rock.
Correct. And that's what I mean. If we see the list, and maybe people will start having ideas and say, well, here's one that we know we can't do anything with, but
And I also want to throw something else out, that there's certain laws on how we can sell land. We're not like a private entity where you can just go to a realtor and sell it or put it up there. We need to follow certain things, I just want, this is down the next step, I just want to get everybody ready, that probably one of the things I'm going to ask for an ordinance is to allow us, you need to pass an ordinance to allow us to use a realtor. If not, we have to do it by auction. So it's not always the best,
Well, why don't you lay out?
right, and that's why I want to come in with one package and say, this is what we're going to do. So that's why we're trying to do our due diligence instead of just and again, having those rumors out there is what I'm trying to stop. I want you guys to have all the information instead of having these rumors that we own 101 properties. So, have 101 buildings out there. So that's why I'm making sure we do due diligence before we give it to you guys.
Counselor Pickering?
Back to that parking lot on Bay Road, we did talk about closing it down for a while. I noticed that hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
There's also a trailer park there. It's there all the time. I don't know who it belongs to, but
We'll figure out.
is this going to be closed down? Because I thought it was going to happen right off.
We're still working with the Public Works Director to figure out, and some of the people in the area, because they're concerned
You want me to go around knocking on doors? I'll get it done.
Counselor, we don't
Get
need
it-
that.
I'll get it
Counselor, we
done.
don't need that, we're fine. But there's other impacts that we need to make sure if we close the parking lot, if there are people with easements on it, do they have rights to still get into that parking lot, and how can they get in
Yeah.
there? So it's not just a simple, close it down, we need to make sure that people who do have rights to get in there, they can.
One call to public service, there's your easements.
Well, there could be other easements on the property as well
Oh,
that
you
we're
think there
checking.
might be?
Yeah.
The last question I had, just because it's staring me in the eye, these, the amount of debt limit on that page. And it would have been nice to sort of really get a handle on this. We really are pretty clean, as most towns go. Is that a fair assumption as far
It
as
is.
having debt?
Yes,
Which I think is really a good thing.
yes.
So we're obviously, with wastewater, we're going to be borrowing X amount of dollars, getting X amount of dollars back. So that's not going to be, I think, with the anticipated cost, even if you used 14 million, which I think it's going to be less than, and we're going to get a credit, meaning, from the, who's the?
Ultimately, it'll be about 10 million from USDA.
So
rural
we're,
development.
so we're going to be getting a grant on that, so that's a very reasonable number when you think in terms of what, since there is no limit on how much we can borrow
Right,
for wastewater.
right.
I just want to get, go over these three bullet items. Then the water fund, you're talking more about the Mac well, obviously.
Yes,
And that's not a crazy number.
2 million, 2.5.
yeah, 2.5
Right.
million.
And then lastly, I just want to understand that, because, I was talking to a town not long ago that was, and we had actually discussed it and decided not to, but they're bonding asphalt and roads, and they kind of said to me that they regretted having done that, because operational things is not a great thing to bond. And so when you say the general fund's debt limit is 3% of the base valuation, which is 20 million, we don't really have, we're not bonding much in the general fund right now, are we, or
No, but
are you suggesting
the
that we
risk,
should?
the risk that I'm seeing is that, okay, historically Newmarket's been saving money to purchase something. So if they have a fire truck that they want to buy, they've been saving for 10 years to buy that fire truck.
Yeah.
Now, for the last 4 years, because of the way that the economy has fallen, some of these savings have gone to the wayside. So if you're starting to look at the balances, they're not quite where they should be in line with when those vehicles or when the streets are going to be paved. It's just, we're kind of out of balance. So to balance everything out, we're going to have to bond. So we're starting to shift towards bonding rather than saving.
Boy, I'd like to see that analysis, because,
Okay.
before we start talking about bonding,
No,
Hold on, yeah, I
Well,
want to make sure.
he mentioned
Yeah, but
bonding.
again, we're jumping way down the road.
Yeah.
The problem that we haven't been doing is, we have a number of capital reserve funds that we know that we have,
for example, the asphalt, we know that.
we know we have liabilities for roads.
Yeah.
We should be putting away X amount a year for roads. We don't. We've been cutting that budget because it's a place we can cut.
I think we put a little more in last year.
We did do a
right?
little more last year because we're starting to try to rebuild.
And we may
this.
be able to do that a little this year.
Right, but it's not just asphalt that we need to look at. We need to look at putting stuff aside for fire equipment. We need to look at putting stuff aside for building and maintenance, buildings and grounds, in case there's some large projects that we need to, which we are. But we just need to make sure that those funds are healthy, that we can hit those at some point when we need to do the project versus borrowing. We don't want to borrow those things if we can start saving a little bit now in the
Okay.
long run.
Well, we don't generally get an opportunity to have this type of
Yeah.
discussion, so just in closing, at least from my standpoint, it would be nice if some of the concerns that you have identified could possibly be shared with us, and what your projected dollars that you'd like to be targeting or setting aside, because right now,
That would be part of my proposed budget. Because part of my budget, I'll show you where I think we should be putting some of these funds aside. Because one of the things is contribution to capital reserve funds.
but you just said a minute ago that this is more in the offing, and you're not talking about doing this right away. So are you talking about bonding right away?
Bonding would be, not right away. putting money aside, we need to start doing right away, so we don't have to bond.
Okay.
You know, for example, there's a fire truck coming due in 4 years. If you continue in the same rate that you're going to be doing it, you're going to have to bond for the difference in 4 years. I'm just using that as an
But it's,
example.
again,
But-
we're not saying it's a
but-
definitive thing, we're not saying what kind of truck, we're not getting specifics, we're just saying, on the schedule where we are, that's one of the top pieces of equipment that we need to look at beginning to put money aside. And I'd rather be ready for it than have to borrow money if something happens.
Then if, maybe within the next, meeting to 3,
It's
month
gonna
or
be
two.
much further than that.
Yeah, but
It's gonna
maybe
be
we
part of the
could.
budgeting
Yeah,
process.
maybe we could see a list of some of the concerns that you have.
The CIP is that list.
Okay, so the whole.
That's the point of the capital improvement.
Okay, so the whole
project,
CIP is what you're talking.
That's what we're talking about. All those projects that the department's put money to, saying that we're gonna have to address at some point in time, that's what the purpose of the CIP is a list of things that we think that are capital projects that are out there that we're recommending to put money aside for the future.
Okay. I'll leave it at that. Counselor Pickering?
The chickens are coming home to roost, and this is nothing that you created. It was a CIP cut about 3 or 4 years back when it started to save on our tax rate. It's already coming home to bite us. It's just unbelievable. So how much deficit are we talking about?
Oh, I don't have.
Potentially, I mean,
This is my impression of where the CIP funds are and the direction of what people's impressions are and how to fund the town, okay? It seems that I'm hearing pressure from taxpayers and other people, like committee members, as that they want to have reduced tax rates. Well, to have reduced tax rates means that you're going to have to save less money, because that's the logical place to go first.
I knew it the day they did it. It was a mistake. And now we're gonna pay. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're pretty good on this. Any other questions? I think we at least covered a lot of ground there. Like I said, it'd be nice to be able to prepare a little more, but when we get into the budgeting season, and maybe hopefully, with the CIP, Steve, just so we can get just a little bit of a handle on, what some of your concerns are, more specifically than, all the CIPs. There may be some that are fine. I think that might be helpful for us to see before we get into the full budget. That's
Yeah,
all. That's the only thing I'm saying.
yeah, part of the CIP is the department heads make a recommendation, I prioritize them, and then the committee prioritizes them. So then we go by the committee's prioritization in the budget. But it's a good thing to look at is if you have a healthy fund balance, is maybe this is the time you put some of that money aside, some of it, to do some of these projects too that are one time, so you don't hit the tax rate as well. So
It's a great way to end, some of it.
some of it.
I think we're all set, man. We
Okay,
can
great.
let
Thank
you
you so
go now.
much.
Thank you, Matt.
Right.
Very much. And lastly, we're going to have the town administrator go over the personnel policy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of the town charter is that we need to submit a personnel plan, which, I've heard personnel handbook, what term I use is personnel policy. That's the common phrase that we use. So what we did was, the finance director and I began by reviewing our current personnel policy, which was last amended in 2011. There was some other changes, but we've never seen an actual approval for some of the issues, and was one of the big questions. It's like, you know what, the records weren't kept as well of when things amended, so we said, okay, we're going to try to do this by starting over. And the first thing we did was we sent the personnel, the current one we have, into the town attorney. And they went through and they reviewed it. And they made a number of changes, recommended changes, that would just bring us up into line with current labor laws that we need to follow. So we didn't do a lot of what I'd refer to as sweeping changes, except we did do we are recommending 2 changes so we can get it in place sooner rather than later. If you want, I can just go real quickly through what these changes were. A lot of them were like equal employment opportunity and definition of sexual harassment. We had to update the wording because of the recommendation from town attorney. Harassment procedure and retaliation. It adds that the town council chair is a person that they can go to, because as of right now, it's only to the town administrator. Well, if the town administrator is the one doing it, you gotta be able to go to someone else. So you need to add that additional person.
They had the police chief as well, didn't they,
Right,
before?
but I'm the supervisor, the town administrator is the supervisor of the chief, so you need to have somebody who's the next person up.
Where are you, Steve? What page on our?
I'm
packet?
on page 80 of the packet, not of the digital numbers, not of the.
Thank you.
The next was an update for the Americans with Disability Act that requires employees to provide certain information to the town if needed to determine disability, and that the town may decline accommodations in certain circumstances. The next is just updating that employees at will, that all non-contractual employees are considered employees at will. And for employment classifications, it redefines part-time employees, eliminating the difference between permanent part-time employees and temporary part-time employees. Because you're either part-time or temporary, you're not both. If you're part-time, that means you're here all the time. If you're temporary, whether you're working 40 hours a week or if you're working 20 hours a week, you're temporary. And it just also updates the definition of exempt and not exempt to comply with the new laws. This one is one that I am recommending, is for under compensation. It'll eliminate longevity payments to employees hired after September 1st, 2013. Reclassification eliminates, and this is the other one I'm recommending.
Which number is that, please?
Number 6. And number 7 is the reclassification. It eliminates the provision that if an employee is reclassified to a lower level, the employee's salary cannot be lowered with the new classification. Don't understand why that would be in there, so I know that was a concern of the council, so I recommend that be removed. Payroll deductions updates current policy to comply with state and federal laws. Overtime, this one is one that we're recommending that it eliminates comp time. Comp time is one of those areas that gets any business or really municipalities in trouble. Most people consider comp time flex time, that you can build up hour for hour that you work over 40 hours and then use it later on. Well, the law is actually, it's considered overtime. So you're not building up an hour after 40 hours, you're building up an hour and a half after 40 hours. So that's one thing we've got, so we're just gonna eliminate comp time. If you work overtime, we're gonna pay you then. And the other thing is, you can build that up and your rate of pay may change. So we're gonna be paying you more than if we paid you the overtime in the week. One thing that I don't have a problem with is, if I think somebody has overtime coming, is to do flex time. If somebody may work 12 hours a day but can leave at another day early, they'll leave earlier the next day, so we don't have to pay overtime. So those are the areas where it really comes in. Exempt employees, currently the policy specifies who exempt employees are. That shouldn't be. It should be determined when you hire somebody in the job description. If I put it in the policy, that means anytime you want the employee's exempt, you have to go to the council, you have to go through that process. It should be in the job descriptions. Vacation time, it clearly defines that employees not accrue vacation time for any periods in which an employee is entitled to no wages, for example, family with medical leave. And it clarifies the section allowing an employee to carry over vacation time. One of the things we haven't addressed yet, and this is probably will be the first amendment, is to deal with the accrual of vacation time and how to deal with that. So, buyout. If an employee doesn't use all their vacation time, the use it or lose it policy. We don't want to have employees be able to accrue large amounts and at their time of separation at the end of their career come into us and have this large check. We want to try to get that done throughout their career so we don't have large liabilities at the end. One of the things you've been hearing over the past few years that happens when it comes to retirement is because your retirement is based on the highest 3 years that you're paid. So people tend to save it up and try to up their retirements at the end. We want to try to eliminate that so we don't have the spiking as well and have liabilities. The next is just the depletion of sick time. It adds a section allowing employees vacation time in case of depletion of sick time. Also adds a provision that an employee may be terminated if they go beyond their authorized leave time. A lot of updates to the Family and Medical Leave Act. The town attorney recommends adding a section on military leave to comply with federal laws, so you're going to see a lot of wording in there. And again, just to go along with that same, 407 updates the entire military leave section. 410 adds a section for a leave of absence for victims of a crime. That's a new law that we need to comply with. Workers' comp just updates to comply with law. And confidentiality, it revises sections to better define confidentiality of town materials. There've been suits on the right for employees and when they can and cannot have certain materials be released from the town. If it's a public document, there's no issue with it, as long as it's a public document. If it's not, it has to say confidential. So we just updated that. We updated by eliminating the section for policy, the town equipment's telephones, fax, emails, and internet use, put it as appendices to better highlight that. It shouldn't be part of the policy, it should be at appendices. Personal dress, we revised that, the town attorney revised that as well. And progressive discipline, we eliminate the provision of progressive discipline for two reasons. One, it adds discipline procedures to the portion of the policy outlining standards of conduct. In addition, it allows for more discipline if warranted. Currently, if we want to discipline employees, you have to go through X, Y, Z. You know, it's progressive. Well, some employees may do something that you need to discipline them on Y, but you have to go through X first. We are eliminating that so you can discipline an employee where it matters. Health and safety, we updates the policy. The precautions employees must follow. Adds provisions for joint loss management committee that we need to by state law. Seatbelt policy, we didn't have a requirement that employees wear seatbelts, which is a given. If you're in a town vehicle, you need to wear a seatbelt unless it's a vehicle there. You don't have a seatbelt.
Can you do that even if state law doesn't mandate it?
Yes.
Just ask.
We can do it. We can be more restrictive because of our liability. So yes, we can require them. Yep. Another thing that we would be banning is, which I don't believe we have, I would have to double check, I think we do already in place, is smoking in town vehicles. You can't smoke in town vehicles. The next is workplace searches. That adds provision outlining the right to town conduct workplace searches to comply with new lawsuits. Basically, it reminds them that desks are not private, lockers are not private, they're part of the town, and we have the right to search them. And it gives how we would do so. In cell phones, adds a provision of proper use of cell phones during work hours. You know, don't sit there all day on your cell phone doing personal business. If you get a personal call, that's, you know, make it reasonable, not a large project. So these are really the basics, besides those three, the comp time, the longevity, and the reclassification. Most of these were updates just to comply with current procedures and law. So this is our base document that we want to have in place so we can make changes in the future. Like as I said, there was so many confusions on which policy was actually in place and which revisions were in place that we want to start anew. And that's why what we'll probably recommend is that the council adopt this policy first and then come in with larger revisions so we can focus more on those instead of trying to do them all at once.
Councilor Bentley.
First, it's a good start. I appreciate certainly some of the things I specifically asked for. I see that you, Matt, the attorney, someone agreed with that I think will help the town. On just one comment on, two comments. I've never seen in the 4 years I've been here any talk about the Joint Loss Management Committee, and I wondered, is that happening now?
It does. When I came on board, and I know that they were meeting before, we have a Joint Loss Management Committee. Their job is to, it has to be a certain member of management, a certain member of employees that are non-management. When I say management, I mean department heads, who meet at least quarterly and review safety issues that may come up in town. They usually look at any workers' comp claims that may happen to see if there was a safety issue that we need to they need to report. And if there are those safety issues, they actually come to me as the sort of like the board of as the arbitrator of that, and I have to then determine what kind of safety changes, what we can afford, and try to have to get those things fixed. The State Department of Labor comes in every so often and audits us to make sure we do that. And if we don't have those meetings and minutes, then we could face significant fines.
It's a great thing. We have one at work. It's not called that, and we're not mandated to do it, but we've cut our fires, spills, and accidents tenfold. But the reason I ask it, and that's what I thought maybe it was, but 6.09, if you could talk to your department heads on the cell phone thing.
Yep.
I'm out of town 50 hours a week, and I see some town employees in some town vehicles talking on cells as they're driving and turning and texting, and
Yep.
and that leads me to the other one. It's a safety thing, and it's not when will something happen. it's not if something happens, it's when will something happen. Eventually, someone driving one of these vehicles, and there's some liability, and I see it a lot. Enough that I probably should have said something earlier, but now when I was reading this, I'm like, I'm not sure that every department head is telling every employee, or every employee is certainly not adhering to it. And I'm not trying to be the old, geezer here, and it's not even as much really the time, that we're paying them and they're doing something else. I understand if they're traveling from one area to the other, maybe it's the safety issue of it.
Yeah.
I see it a lot. So if that can be brought up, I'd appreciate it.
And that would be one thing we've been talking with other communities are all dealing with that now, especially hand-free and texting when driving. So those are things that we're trying to come up, and this isn't just a Newmarket issue. Other communities, we're all working together, trying to come up with amendments to our policies to ban texting and driving while working and those kind of things. So it's not flying deaf ears.
I think it's a really good start, and I agree with 99% of everything I've seen here. The one thing I might suggest, with respect to sick leave, and I didn't, it's on page 115, it's a small thing, but it says sick leave accrues at the rate of 1 day per month, and accrual commences on the date of hire. I was thinking about it. You might want to have either a 90-day, I think that's reasonable. 6 months is maybe pushing it, but at least 90 days before people start getting benefits. Because if someone comes to work for the town and for whatever reason it doesn't work out, then they're on our insurance on some level. They're on, even if they have to pay, to me, there should be a little bit of a trial to make sure it's going to work out. But anyway, it's a small thing, but I don't know if all the other things start at the day of hire as well. I'm assuming they may.
Yeah.
So, if there was a little time in between just to make sure you're going to be happy with that employee, it gives you that flexibility to not have the benefits start and everything else.
Yep.
So that's the only comment I have other than what's already been stated. Any other input? So are you going to just go ahead and implement this?
No,
or?
the council needs to adopt this. We'll have a ordinance at the next meeting, so we have to go through that process.
So you'll do the ordinance, we'll do a first reading.
And then do the second one and adopt.
And we'll have, is there public comment, obviously?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I might suggest, just because, two quick things. If town employees have concerns and they want not to have to come before the council in a public, or they could email,
Yep.
and they could, I'm just suggesting
Yeah.
that it's a way that they may, because I don't want them to feel that we don't want to hear their input.
Again, the
That's
concern
purpose.
about email would, I'd ask it either go to me or the chair, because you can't send it to the full council because of right-to-know law issues.
I guess what I'm saying, if they're concerned
Yeah,
about.
they don't have to come before the
If they're
council.
concerned about anonymity or something, I don't want them to feel like they can't tell us what
Yep.
concerns they have. And, Counselor Wright?
Yeah, once it's implemented and the town employees have read the policy, and I see they need a signature.
Yes.
What do you consider an appropriate time frame from after they've actually received this, read it, and when you would expect the signatures back?
I'd expect it probably within 14 days.
14 days, okay.
Last thing on this?
Yeah.
I think if we were to update this and maybe you can put that in the ordinance, that way it won't have years go by. I mean, I know you said it was
Yeah.
updated, but I don't remember it really being updated that well. I think waiting so many years in between, there's so many federal laws that change, state laws. If we, and I was talking to my HR person about it today, and they said if you do it every year or two, first of all, it costs you a lot less because you don't have to do the whole thing, and then you're not acting out of compliance, because that's what had concerned me more than
Yeah.
anything. We weren't within state law.
It's usually practice for the town administrator or somebody in the HR department to have the attorney review it annually to give you the updates. Usually we get notices of updates that they'll say, hey, look, here's something that changed in federal law. You should look at your personnel policy, but.
But we just didn't do it.
Right.
So what I'm saying is it unreasonable in the ordinance to say that this will be done on a 2-year basis, just to have it
I would
reviewed
even
by
say
the attorney?
annually. I'd say annually we need to
Good.
have the attorney review this.
Counselor Pickering?
Yeah. I didn't come this evening with any questions because it specifically said we're not gonna discuss it tonight, so we're gonna do the readings and there'll be a open session
Yep.
where we'll be able to discuss it after the 2 readings.
That's how I read it too, but
Yeah.
after you made your presentation, I figured it was
Yeah, it's,
fair enough. We didn't go too crazy.
I just didn't want to make everybody feel like they had to read all 90 pages before today.
Well, I did.
too.
Anyway.
Me too.
It was good.
Is there anybody else that has any questions with respect to this? None? Any new business or closing comments by counselors? Counselor Bentley?
Just on the fireworks, I was asked if the town pays for the fireworks, what they paid, and why we felt the need to go forward with it and not just save, and I didn't have the answer to any of them, so.
Well, first thing is, I believe that this is part of the money that we give to Old Home Day.
How much is the total?
I don't know off the top of my head. This is, I believe, we're at $2,500, and you have to put a deposit down because they have to buy the materials.
Fireworks.
So we have to have that anyways, so we just, usually you put in a rain date because of that. If not, we lose our deposit, so.
Excellent. No, good answers, thanks.
Counselor Pickering?
I received a phone call from a taxpayer in town here, and I know Town Hall also did, and in reference to how we hand out money to different entities such as Lamprey Healthcare and any of the grants that we pass out. There doesn't seem to be anything in place for them to apply. I mean, it's pretty wishy-washy, and each year, just because they're on the list, we just keep cutting checks. So when will we be discussing this?
That would be part of the budget process. I agree. We're going to begin looking at procedures and processes on how nonprofits and other agencies can request funds from the town. I want to make sure that they're doing business in town and residents are actually receiving services from the contributions. In addition, we want to make sure that we're not providing them services in other ways. For example, not giving tax exempt status and then giving a contribution.
So
Those are things.
Potentially be doing a policy at that time.
Right, it'll be part of the budget, correct.
We'll do a
Yeah,
policy.
because right now, it's the beginning of the fiscal year. Every town you go into, they come in, this is the time of year, you just get a letter requesting the funds. So it's like, I want a little more information. Are you a true 501c3? How much are you giving to the community? Those kind of information. So we're going to be requesting that.
Does that always come before us?
It's
Steve?
part of the budget process.
No, well, no, but I'm saying, since the administrator can allocate X amount of dollars up to 10,000 or whatever, do you always go to, if someone came and said, we need something for something, would you?
We don't,
most-
for charities, you don't give unless it's been appropriated. And
Okay.
the charities are usually Lamprey Healthcare, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Heritage Festival, Old Home Day, CAP, Rackham Community Action Program. Those are the ones that they've been appropriated. There's a line for them. We'll kind of. We're not in the business of giving other charities, unless it's been appropriated. That's what we give.
Okay.
So.
Counselor Carmichael?
I was going to say, last year we did discuss it.
Yeah.
And we did cut some.
Yep. And that's the other thing I've noticed is a lot of communities they're always in there, and sometimes they don't even ask for the charities don't ask for the money. So we want to make sure that we're giving money to those who want it too.
Right.
But I think to back us up, if I may, we need to have that policy in
Absolutely.
in writing, and then we'll have something.
Last thing I have is, when will we be considering the 2 business meetings in the month? And when I got the agenda this week, and I was curious, we didn't really do the rec revolving fund and all the other resolutions that we had read at the last meeting. Would we have normally done that at this meeting, or
No,
would that?
our current rules are this is a workshop, so
Yeah.
we don't vote on things. If we had 2 business meetings a month, this meeting would have been like the last one. You wouldn't have had the.
So we would have dealt with all those
Right,
resolutions?
you would have just had exactly what we do at every other meeting. You wouldn't have that hour conversation on the department reports.
Yeah.
That would be condensed because it's not, because we have other business to do. we would have all the resolutions voted on. If you had like a specific topic, for example, the zoning ordinance, we'd go, you know what, we need a workshop for this. We need to have a night just to spend to talk on this. You'd set a special meeting for that.
Okay. And so at the next meeting, we will discuss the two meetings. You're going to
I
figure.
put a resolution
You were
in.
going to look into the legality and if we can do that and there's no issue.
Well, we have to do it at the next meeting because it's a business meeting.
I understand.
yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah,
there was a
no-
question as to whether or not there was some protocol as to whether we could do it or
Yeah.
not, and you'll find,
Yeah,
you'll know all
that's
that. Okay. Anything else? Motion to, our next council meeting is going to be September 7th, and that will be a business meeting. So, do I have motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Second. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.